Welcome back. Now, tomorrow being the 1st of October 2025, Nigeria turns 65. And it's a milestone that calls us to reflect not just on our independence, but also on our nation building. And one very important part of that nation building is our education system, which is the very foundation of the people of Nigeria. Now, joining us this morning is Dr. Cletus Mbeje. He's an educationist and he's here to talk on education and national development, Nigeria at 65. Good morning and you're welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, as Nigeria marks 65 years of independence, looking back from 1960, how would you assess the journey of Nigeria's education sector and its contribution to national development?
Thank you once again for having me. The fundamental is that Nigeria is at 65 come 1st October 2025. By tomorrow, by the grace of God, sequel to independence in 1960, during when the colonial masters left us, though in the pseudo form. Indeed, education of Nigeria has been transformed. It has been transformed because in Ab initio, we were using the foreign curricula. But along the line, the education system was transformed to be used into Nigerian authorities. Nigerian authorities started developing books that can suit their own peculiar environment. Which is the reason why if you are teaching a child about aeroplane, a child who has not seen aeroplane before, today he can see aeroplane, giving local examples within our own locality. So our education system indeed has been transformed in a way that, which is the reason why today in the Ab initio we don't have universities in Nigeria. But when after independence, UNN was built. UNN was launched around 1960, which became the first indigenous university in Nigeria. University of Ibadan was a foreign university. It was a university college, Ibadan. That was when we were running foreign degrees. But when we got independent in 1960, UNN was built, from through which Nigeria started building more universities. So, and in which case, universities education started coming down to Nigeria, and our children started going to school here in Nigeria, from primary to what? University, unlike going to abroad. In those days, if you finish from secondary school, before you enter university, you have to travel abroad. And if you don't have the money to travel abroad, then you stay. You enter into farming or you go into trading. But after independence in 1960, more universities were built. And across all the states, of course, Jonathan did it. During Jonathan's regime, the other states that do not have university, Jonathan make sure that all other states that has no federal university have federal universities, which we have for now at Ebonyi State, even in Borno State. So eventually, our education system, by the grace of God, since after independence, has been transformed. Even the system of education too. You know, in Ab initio, we had it was what they call it standard 8 primary school. From there, it was it was reduced down to 6-5-3 system, which is 3 years 6 years in primary school, 3 years in junior secondary, and 2 years in the senior secondary. And by then, the system changed again from 6-3-5 system to 6-3-3-4 system, which means 6 years in primary school, 3 years in junior secondary, and 3 years in the tertiary, in the senior secondary, then 4 years in university. So the system has changed, and today we are talking about what? 9-3-4 system. We're talking about basic education. Before that, it was universal primary education. That's UPE. But because of the transformation, because now we have included kindergarten into the system, because before the nursery school was only included in the curriculum, but now the 2005 reform, 2003 reform, brought the nursery session into the curriculum, where today it is now 9-3-4. People from you can at the age of 3 you should be in nursery school, and then before 5 years or 6 years you should be in primary 1, and then from there we now have 9-3, which means 9 years basic education. The system changed. The universal primary education, as incorporated by the United Nations Organization 1958, now brought in universal basic education. That's UBE, not UPE, which was universal basic education. So now 9 years, which means basic education is 9 years now. If you don't, if you will not go to school, and you should learn how to read and write, reading and writing, and calculations. at least when you have your primary education from, let me say basic education from primary school to grade 1, grade 2, grade 2 to grade 9. JSS 3 9 is now grade 9. JSS 2 9 is now grade 8. JSS 1 9 is now grade 7. Whereas primary 1 grade 1, primary 2 grade 2, primary 3 grade 3, primary 3 to primary 4 grade 4, primary 5 grade 5, and primary 6 what? Grade 6. So is that basic education? Fundamentally, you should be able to read and write, and you should be able to make good sentence and do some arithmetic calculation. If you are into businesses, you should be able to calculate and discuss businesses with somebody. So, by the grace of God, from that 1960 till now, our educational system has been transformed. But the problem we have in Nigeria context, educational system, is the issue of privatization and commercialization. Where today, yes, it is good that education has been privatized, giving opportunity for private sectors to come in, to build institutions where people can easily have access to a school. Because then, JAM denied many people admissions during the time of public education. Because before you go to university, you have to write JAM. Even when you are WAEC or you are O-level, what they call O-level, it's okay. You have to write JAM. JAM is an absolute test that qualifies you to go to university on their course of career. But JAM subsequently now been issued, started denying people many admission. A child will finish from school because of JAM. He will be at home without going to school because they said JAM did not give me admission. Later, JAM was adopted with malpractices. And then university themselves started organizing for aptitude tests. They said JAM, they don't trust JAM any longer. JAM, what you are giving us is not true. We don't trust because many people that pass JAM cannot feature in the area of career where they want to study. I want to study engineering, but from the report I'm seeing you here, you are not qualified to study engineering. The university themselves say, okay, no, we can no longer accept JAM records. Let's be organizing ourselves by ourselves and test the students to be sure that they are qualified to read this course they want to study. If you want to become a medical doctor, come and write the exams. That was aptitude test was introduced by university. Along the line, corruption entered into the system. Before you want to do, even if you write the exams and pass, the aptitude test, write JAM, the JAM gives you admission, you pass. Write aptitude test, you pass. If you don't have the money, you will not do that medicine you want to study because you are unable to bribe, to give to the person in charge the money for you to be qualified to study that course, even when you have the intellectual capability to do that. So that has been a problem that has been handcuffing Nigerian educational system up to today. In each instances, the system has been transformed from 1960. I agree with you. But the problem is the issue of the endemic issue, which is corruption, that has entered into the fabrics of Nigerian system. Every system in Nigeria has been endowed by corruption. And that is the problem that we have in Nigerian education system today. Thank you.
All right. Before we continue on the challenges of Nigeria's educational system, okay, now we've talked about the history and the succession. We'd like to give us a quick analysis of why education actually matters for national development.
Yeah, good. Yes, education is a fundamental instrument for national development. Even the national policy of education, education is seen as an instrument. Now, let me tell you, for every nation to be developed holistically, education is seen as an instrument par excellence for national development. And that is why in Nigeria philosophy of education, one of the philosophy of Nigerian education is Nigeria wants to have it's a long-term aspiration, we call it goals of Nigerian philosophy of education, a free and democratic society, a very brilliant aspiration, a just and egalitarian society where everybody is equal, a strong and self-reliant nation, a nation where everybody, in fact, everybody, you have something doing, the capital income is of the high rate. Everybody is not hungry, nobody is hungry, everybody is working, everybody is earning if you are working, your payment is almost equivalent to your services. You can eat well, you can feed well. Nigeria wants to have a strong and self-reliant nation, a nation where there is diversity of the economy, and then a land full of brighter opportunities for all our sundries. If you look at the aspiration, very brilliant aspiration. And they said, for them to achieve these goals, for Nigeria to achieve this beautiful aspiration, therefore, education is seen as what? As an instrument par excellence for national development. So if education is seen as an instrument for national, therefore, there should be a deliberate and conscious effort made by the policy formulators who will formulate those policies and deliberately implement them. What does it imply? It simply means that in educational system, the education must be holistically built with all the basic infrastructures. Who is teaching in the university? The people to be employed. Who to employ? Who employed and who is being employed to teach, to lecture? Am I communicating? Education in all ramification, universally speaking, has been seen as an instrument. Even the Tigris economy, the Japanese miracles, all of them were built on education, human capital development. The country is as developed as its human capital. There is no nation that can be developed without its human capital. And where does human capital come? Through education.
All right, Dr. Mbeje, now, from what you've said, how far now has Nigeria's education system succeeded in building these national values, citizenship, and unity that lead to national development?
Yes, of course. Yes, education has helped significantly.
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria context.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Education has helped significantly. If not for education, Nigeria wouldn't have been where it is today. I tell you this. We suffered the civil war immediately after the Sweden independence. I call it Sweden because there was no independence. It was politically independent. We are not economically free. Even up to today, Nigeria is not economically free from the European empires. But because of before now, if you give birth to twins, they will say they will go and kill them because they say it's an abomination. And before now, people cannot reason and think the way you think. But because of education, because of the enlightenment, people going to school to acquire information, transformation information, somebody can sit and listen to you. Even when somebody is angry, you would think by saying, if not that you went to school, if not that he's educated, I could have done. But education has helped to quell many people's mindset. Even the issue of going into unnecessary demonstration. Some people, will, because of your educational level and your orientation, which you have acquired, you will sit back and think. Rather than going into violence, you rather than think. Because it's expected that now, in your community, how many people were educated before now? Going back to the things that were happening in your community, because of the rate of education in your community now, or people in the community now, a lot of people have gone to school, and a lot of people are now having more insight into what is happening around the universe, and a lot of people have read books, have read so many information about the universe, and that is the reason why today Nigeria is as where it is today, because at least it has some rational mindset. People have traveled outside, have gone to. You cannot be a minister of aviation when you don't have any knowledge about aviation. You cannot be a minister of power when you do not study power, or you do not study electricity in school. You cannot be a minister of education when you are not well groomed to understand the nitty-gritty, what it takes to build a primary school, what it takes to build a secondary school, what it takes to build a university, a college of education and university. So education, by the grace of God, has helped significantly, because today Nigeria is at where it is because people's minds have been transformed. At least before, we have professors today heading many parastatals and institutions, departments and agencies, giving professional advices to the leaders. Even though some of the leaders or the politicians we have today, some of them are not well educated. We're talking about education, it does not tie down to university education. Because basic education, fundamentally, we're talking about primary school, is the fundamental education that people have. So when somebody can speak, read, and write, the person is educated. It's also tied down to having tertiary education. So in so doing, education has indeed gone far more in advancing the cause of Nigerian development.
All right, Mr. Nkeje, I love your energy when you're talking about this educational things and system. But like you said, education is one of the most important, sector that we think Nigeria should pay more attention to. But yet, education receives about 7% national budget, or say federal budget for 2025. Do you think that is enough? And where do you think they should channel or focus more?
I agree with you. Fundamentally speaking, Nigeria's politicians have not made deliberate and conscious effort in the transforming education in Nigeria. When we talk about transformation and making education to be functional, it does not tie down to that the education is not important. It boils down to who is in charge or who is the leadership of Nigeria. The reason why we have not gone to where we are today is because of bad leadership. Indeed, education would have been receiving at least, if not up to 40% of Nigerian budget, if we really want to have a holistic education. Now, we are talking about building of drones. We are talking about building of automobiles. We are talking about building many things. Who is an expert? Nigerians inventors are not here in Nigeria. Those who have gone and studied and they have the specialized skills, expertise. How many of them are there in Nigeria? They are abroad. But if Nigerian government had made deliberate and conscious effort to put up a budget and send people abroad, China did it. The Tigris economy did it. That was on there today. Open your phone. Even this phone we are holding is that China. They did it. They send their people abroad, train them, got expertise who trained them and they paid them. And today they came back home and they are executing it in their land. Nigerian president, who is doing it? They think of how they will enrich themselves. Back the money today, the money doesn't go to bank any longer. It is from banks. They are bagging it. They have their own till in their houses. Nigerian police have not made deliberate and conscious effort in the trouble. Now, as we want to go on strike, they threatened last 2 weeks or so to go on strike. Why should it be so? A child who go to school, who is in university, public university, who's supposed to spend 4 years or 5 years, so to speak, maybe those of them studying nursing, or those of them studying medicine, who's supposed to spend maximum 7 years or law to come out. 7 years you come out from, you will be called to bar. Now, you will be there in public universities for close to 10 to 12 years because of what? Strike. Why should it be so? Universities are not demanding too much. What are they saying? The public institutions are dilapidated. Go around, assess. You see that most of the infrastructures in public universities are no longer there. And these are the things they are demanding. How much is a professor earning? How much is a House of Rep member earning? Compare. Somebody who has undergone a study, written and developed the universe, the world, the academic knowledge is the same. How much is he earning? How much is the politician earning? So, Nigerian politicians are not interested in building education. They are interested in developing their pocket. And that is why education is at where it is today. That is why ASU will continue to go on strike. They will discuss on the round table. This is the agreement signed. But agreement is just a paper. It does not have any effect. After signing, what happened later? So there has not been any deliberate and conscious effort in educational revitalization.
That leads me to ask you, Dr. Mpeje. Now, you've mentioned earlier about corruption in the education system, and now you've mentioned strikes in public tertiary institutions. We also have issues of poor funding. You've mentioned dilapidated infrastructure, and even cases of insecurity now in the country. Yes. Now, all of these things have affected education in one way or the other. So which of these challenges most undermines the role of education in national development today? How are they changing or affecting the educational system in Nigeria?
Good. You've said it all. Insecurity. How many people are willing to go back to school within the northeastern region? When they know that when they get to school, they will be kidnapped. Some of them will be killed. Even here in this our southeastern region, even within our southeastern region, the series of kidnapping. Today now, Yahoo boys or all these boys will kidnap children and they will take them. They will take them. They will no longer pay ransom any longer. They will butcher you and sell you in parts. Now, some children have now refused to go to school. That is why they are introducing what we call some states are now introducing a school feeding program. Why is it so? To encourage students to go back to school. School feeding what? Program, so that children can go back to school. Because when you are hungry, can you learn? Now, the system insecurity is one of the fundamental problems that is affecting Nigeria's educational system. And we can copy it. We can copy it by deliberate effort. But because this insecurity is also masterminded by the politicians themselves. The politicians instituted this insecurity. They give, during the time of election, they give weapons to this tout. And after the elections, what happened? The weapons remains with them. And they refuse to release it Later, when they don't meet up with the agreement, the town uses it to against the citizens. And they will start using it to kidnap. So that is the reason why our educators, some people are even afraid. I was speaking with a woman who said, I said, your daughter is grown up. Why not allow her to go to school by herself? He said, no, that all these boys, they use keke and which means if the mother is not available, the child will not go to school. You know the implication. So if the mother is not available to take the child to school, the child will not go to school within that week. So it's a problem. And therefore, the government have to make deliberate and conscious effort to making sure that there is adequate and strong security. The issue of poor funding, like I said, is a very simple contest. The government should make funds available to schools. They should fund education, build infrastructures, pay teachers well. Are we communicating?
Yes.
Pay teachers well, pay lecturers well. The money that the people in the national assembly are receiving is high, is very big compared to what they are giving to lecturers or teachers in the school.
All right. Mr. Nkeje, before you continue, and lastly, before we leave, recent figures show millions of out-of-school children, and earlier this year, FG disbursed millions of, naira for bags for students, and even went ahead to inaugurate committees for the disbursement of these millions. Also, they actually disbursed funds for school children, for loans, student loans,
Yes.
and all that. They also said to get loan from World Bank for educational restructuring. And according to them, 59 million naira loan, they said they gave to students in Nigeria. So these kind of issues, what is your take on that? Is there any evidence? How does all this money translate to the educational system right now?
Good. Yes, the federal government has initiative of giving loans to students. The question is, which category of students? Is it those of them at the primary level, or those of them at the secondary level, or those of them at the tertiary level? When you talk about tertiary institution, you talk about the colleges of education, the polytechnics and polytechnics, and the university itself. And then the masters, and that of what? PhD, even post-PhD. So, now, which category of people is this money meant for? That's the question. Is it for those in secondary school? Like somebody sent a message that if your child is in tertiary institution, you shouldn't pay school fees any longer. That the federal government has paid. How sure is that? Now, what is the way forward to assess these loans or whatever they call it loan? They call it loan. Is it so?
Some are funds.
Somehow it's grants. How many people will have the opportunity to access this loan or these grants? So, if they had wanted to do the right thing, it seems very simple. Come, how many students do you have in this university? We have all the universities in Nigeria, both the private and the public universities. You have the statistics. How many students are here in this country, in this school? How many students are here? How many students are here? Come, all the names and data of the students will be forwarded to they have this at the national pan. Am I communicating? Then the money should be released as such. If you are paying for this student for 3 good years, or 3, 4 years, or 5 years, or 2 years, or 1 year, you release this fund, you pay. Yeah? If federal government will come to tell us that, okay, we have paid for all the students, tertiary students this year, and then it should be workable.
All right.
But to tell me that we are releasing for people who go and apply, how many of them will apply? Just the money will revolve around among themselves, and they will eat the money. How many people will get the money?
Dr. Cletus Orim Meje, I think this is the right time for me to answer your question. Are you communicating? Yes, you communicated. All right, it was very, very lovely to have you in our studio this morning. And we just talked about education and national development. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meje, for joining us. That was indeed a thought-provoking session with you. And it's a conversation that we need to continue because our education system is very important.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And coming up next, it's time for Political Circle with Luke Umbo. And then we'll be connecting to our Abuja studios for more insights and conversations. Stay tuned.